All right, let's dive in. Today, we're taking a look at the incredible intellectual battles that really forged modern Turkey. This was a war of ideas, not fought on battlefields, but in journals and lecture halls, that created the entire philosophical blueprint for a new nation.
So, this was the question, the big one, for Turkish thinkers around the turn of the 20th century. And the challenge wasn't just about politics or drawing new borders. No, it was a deep, profound philosophical crisis. How do you even begin to build a new national identity from the ashes of a centuries-old empire?
To really get the new republic, you first have to understand what came before it, the late Ottoman Empire. And, well, this was an empire in serious trouble, feeling the pressure from every direction. So for its intellectuals, debating ideas wasn't just some academic game. They were desperately searching for a philosophical lifeline, anything to help them survive.
And what's so fascinating here is that philosophy became this practical tool for national salvation. Thinkers were importing and fiercely debating Western ideas, hoping to find a blueprint, some kind of master plan that could save the state from completely collapsing.
Okay, so out of all this intellectual chaos, three major schools of thought really took center stage. Each one offered a radically different vision for the future. You had positivism, materialism, and spiritualism. And this clash of ideas, it would define the battle for the nation's very soul.
First up, we've got what's known in Turkish as positivism, or positivism. The core idea is actually pretty simple. If you can't see it, measure it, or test it, it doesn't count as real knowledge. For Ottoman modernizers, this was revolutionary. It promised a clear, rational, scientific path forward, a way to finally catch up with the West.
A huge influence here was the French philosopher Auguste Comte. He had this theory that all societies evolved through these three stages. For a lot of Ottoman thinkers, this looked like a roadmap. They felt the empire was stuck in the past, and to survive, it absolutely had to reach that final, positive stage of scientific reason.
And don't think this was some fringe movement. We're talking about really influential figures like the sociologist Ziya Gökalp, who were championing these ideas. Their argument was pretty powerful. The only way to modernize the state, the army, and the very mindset of the people was to embrace a scientific worldview.
Then you had materialism, or materialism, which honestly took things a step further. If positivists were just skeptical of anything beyond science, materialists were openly hostile to it. Their belief? Everything, from a rock to a human thought, is just matter in motion. There's no soul, no spirit, no God. Only the physical world is real.
Thinkers like Abdullah Cevdet and Baha Tevfik were the loud and proud champions of this view. They basically used influential journals as their megaphones, arguing that religion and tradition were like chains holding the empire back. For them, a complete, radical break with the past wasn't just an option, it was absolutely essential.
Of course, an attack on tradition that radical was bound to get a powerful response. And it did, in the form of spiritualism or spiritualism. Its defenders saw materialism not as progress, but as this dangerous, soulless ideology that would completely destroy the moral fabric of their society. Thinkers like Filibeli Ahmed Hilmi and Ismail Feni really led this countercharge. Now, they weren't against science or progress, not at all, but they argued passionately that any path forward had to be grounded in Islamic faith and spiritual values. They wrote these powerful critiques, basically defending the soul against the machine.
So this is really the heart of it for this period. The late Ottoman Empire was being torn apart by this fundamental question: matter or spirit, science or faith? Should we make a radical break with the past, or should we build a new kind of modernity that's rooted in tradition? This was the intellectual war that set the stage for everything that came next.
So, what happened? Well, after the empire finally collapsed and a brutal war of independence, a brand new state was born, the Turkish Republic. And its founders, they had to finally pick a side in this great philosophical debate.
And you can see this wasn't an overnight thing. The journey started decades earlier. You have the Tanzimat reforms in 1839 that first cracked open the door to Western ideas. Then the Second Constitutional Era in 1908 just supercharged the whole debate. But 1923, the year the Republic was declared, that was the point of no return. A choice had to be made.
And boy, did they make a choice. It was decisive. The new state threw out the old ideologies of Ottomanism and Pan-Islamism. The future, they declared, was going to be a secular, modern nation-state built on a Western model. In the war of ideas, the positivists and materialists had, for all intents and purposes, won.
Okay, so what philosophy do you use to build this new nation? If you're going to transform a society that completely,
You need a powerful guiding ideology, right?
The intellectual foundation they chose was the European Enlightenment. The founders looked back to the 18th century Age of Reason because they saw it as the ultimate blueprint for building a society from the ground up based on logic and progress.
And this meant grabbing a whole new toolkit of ideas. From now on, reason and science were the ultimate authorities. Secularism became official state policy, creating a clear line between religion and public life. The focus shifted to the individual, and the big goal was to build a national culture based entirely on rational thought, not just inherited tradition.
This quote just captures the spirit of the age perfectly. It's a call to action, to break free from the past and build a future guided only by the light of human reason. For the Republic's founders, this wasn't just a philosophy, it was a revolutionary project. So why does any of this matter today? Well, because the echoes of this intellectual war from over a century ago are still very much alive and shaping the Turkey we see right now.
Here's the main takeaway. The Turkish Republic didn't just pop into existence. Its core principles, that commitment to secularism, to science, to modernity, were the direct result of that intense philosophical struggle between matter and spirit that started decades earlier.
And this all brings us to one last, really crucial question. That core tension from the 19th century between a secular, Western-style modernism on one hand and the traditional, faith-based identity on the other. It was there at the very beginning. How much of that original war of ideas do you think is still defining the Turkey of the 21st century?